Hello, dear listening squirrels. Oops. I forgot. No, I didn't. I changed that battery. Let's see if it comes on. Oh, I have to switch a switch on the bottom, which I am not going to get up to do right now to get that one on. Now, I didn't bother with these. You just here to listen anyway, right? Okay, we're on chapter 8. And I know I've been wearing this shirt for days, but it's new and it feels so good. It's lined and it's warm and I like it. And it don't stink in the pits or nothing. Okay, chapter 8, part 2. Dose. What? Yes, any information respecting Miss Eileen O'Hara, known to have traveled such and such a ship and such a date, either she'll answer it herself if she's genuine, or someone may come forward to give us information about her. So far, it's the only hope of a clue. You'll also put her on her guard, remember? Well, said Tommy, one's got to risk something. I still can't see any sense in the thing, said Tuppence, frowning. If a gang of crooks got hold of... And I already read this. I think I was really on the next page, but it's okay. Go back and review. If a gang of crooks got hold of the ambassador's bag for an hour or two and then sent it back, what possible good can it do them unless there are papers in it they want to copy? And Mr. Wilmot swears there was nothing of the kind. Tommy stared at her thoughtfully. You say foolish things rather well, Tuppence, he said at last. You've given me an idea. Now, this is where we were. It was 2 days later. Tuppence was out to lunch. Tommy, alone in the austere office of Mr. Theodore Blunt, was improving his mind by reading the latest sensational thriller. The door of the office opened and Albert appeared. A young lady to see you, sir. Miss Cicely March. She says she has called in answer to an advertisement. Show her in at once, cried Tommy, thrusting his novel into a convenient drawer. In another minute, Albert had ushered in the young lady. Tommy had just time to see that she was fair-haired and extremely pretty when the amazing occurrence happened. The door through which Albert had just passed was burst rudely open. In the doorway stood a picturesque figure, a big dark man, Spanish in appearance with a flaming red tie. His features were distorted with rage, and in his hand was a gleaming pistol. So this is the office of Mr. Busybody Blunt, he said in perfect English. His voice was low and venomous. Hands up at once or I shoot. It sounded no idle threat. Tommy's hands went up obediently. The girl, crouched against the wall, gave a gasp of terror. This young lady will come with me, said the man. Yes, you will, my dear. You have never seen me before, but that doesn't matter. I can't have my plans ruined by a silly little chit like you. I seem to remember that you were one of the passengers on the Nomadic. You must have been peering into things that didn't concern you, but I've no intention of letting you blab any secrets to Mr. Blunt here. A very clever gentleman, Mr. Blunt, with his fancy advertisements. But as it happens, I keep an eye on advertisement columns. That's how I got wise to his little game. You interest me exceedingly, said Tommy. Won't you go on? Cheek won't help you, Mr. Blunt. From now on, you're a marked man. Give up this investigation and we'll leave you alone. Otherwise, God help you. Death comes swiftly to those who thwart our plans. Tommy did not reply. He was staring over the intruder's shoulder as though he saw a ghost. As a matter of fact, he was seeing something that caused him far more apprehension than any ghost could have. Up to now, he had not given a thought to Albert as a factor in the game. He had taken for granted that Albert had already been dealt with by the mysterious stranger. If he had thought of him at all, it was as one lying stunned on the carpet in the outer office. He now saw that Albert had miraculously escaped the stranger's attention, but instead of rushing out to fetch a policeman in good sound British fashion, Albert had elected to play a lone hand. The door behind the stranger had opened noiselessly, and Albert stood in the aperture, enveloped in a coil of rope. An agonized yelp of protest burst from Tommy, but too late. Fired with enthusiasm, Albert flung a loop of rope over the intruder's head and jerked him backwards off his feet. The inevitable happened. The pistol went off with a roar, and Tommy felt the bullet scorch his ear in passing ere it buried itself in the plaster behind him. "I've got him, sir," cried Albert, flushed with triumph. "I've lassoed him. I've been practicing with a lasso in my spare time, sir. Can you give me a hand? He's very violent." Tommy hastened to his faithful henchman's assistance, mentally determined that Albert should have no further spare time. "You damned idiot," he said. "Why didn't you go for a policeman? Owing to this fool's play of yours, he as near as nothing plugged me through the head. Whew, I've never had such a near escape." "Lassoed him in the nick of time, I did," said Albert, his ardor quite undamped. "It's wonderful what those chaps can do on the prairies, sir." "Quite so," said Tommy, "but we're not on the prairies. We happen to be in a highly civilized city, and now, my dear sir," he added to his prostrate foe, "what are we going to do with you?" A stream of oaths in a foreign language was his only reply. "Hush," said Tommy. "I don't understand a word of what you're saying, but I've got a shrewd idea it's not the kind of language to use before a lady." "You'll excuse him, won't you, miss? Do you know?" "In the excitement of this little upset, I've quite forgotten your name." "March," said the girl. She was still white and shaken, but she came forward now and stood by Tommy, looking down on the recumbent figure of the discomfited stranger. "What are you going to do with them?" "I could fetch a bobby now," said Albert helpfully, but Tommy, looking up, caught a very faint negative movement of the girl's head and took his cue accordingly. "We'll let him off this time," he remarked. "Nevertheless, I shall give myself the pleasure of kicking him downstairs, if it's only to teach him manners to a lady." He removed the rope, hauled the victim to his feet, and propelled him briskly through the outer office. A series of shrill yelps was heard, and then a thud. Tommy came back, flushed but smiling. The girl was staring at him with round eyes. "Did you hurt him?" "I hope so," said Tommy, "but these Dagos make a practice of crying out before they're hurt, so I can't be quite sure about it. Shall we come back into my office, Miss March, and resume our interrupted conversation?" "I don't think we shall be interrupted again." "I'll have my lasso ready, sir, in case," said the helpful Albert. "Put it away," ordered Tommy sternly. He followed the girl into the inner office and sat down at his desk while she took a chair facing him. "I don't quite know where to begin," said the girl. "As you heard that man say, I was a passenger on the Nomadic. The lady you advertised about, Miss O'Hara, was also on board." "Exactly," said Tommy. "That we know already, but I suspect you must know something about her doings on board that boat, or else that picturesque gentleman would not have been in such a hurry to intervene." "I will tell you everything. The the American ambassador was on board. One day, as I was passing his cabin, I saw this woman inside, and she was doing something so extraordinary that I stopped to watch. She had a man's boots in her hand. A man's boot. A boot? Cried Tommy excitedly. I'm sorry, Miss March. Go on. With a little pair of scissors, she was slitting up the lining. Then she seemed to push something inside. Just at that minute, the doctor and another man came down the passage, and immediately she dropped back on the tire. Wait a minute, no. Dropped back on tire couch. I don't know what that means. And groaned. I waited, and I gathered from what was being said that she had pretended to feel faint. I say pretended because when I first caught sight of her, she was obviously feeling nothing of the kind. Tommy nodded. Well, I rather hate to tell you the next part. I was curious, and also I'd been reading silly books, and I wondered if she'd put a bomb or a poison needle or something like that into Mr. Wilmot's boot. I know it's absurd, but I did think so. Anyway, next time I passed Tire, what does it keep saying that? T-I-R-E. Empty cabin, I slipped in and examined the boot. I drew out from the lining a slip of paper just as I had in my hand. I heard the steward coming, and I hurried out so as to not be caught. The folded paper was still in my hand. When I got into my own cabin, I remembered it. I examined it. Mr. Blunt, it was nothing but some verses from the Bible. Verses from the Bible? Said Tommy, very much intrigued. At least I thought so at the time. I couldn't understand it, but I thought perhaps it was the work of a religious maniac. Anyway, I didn't feel it was worthwhile replacing it. I kept it without thinking much about it until yesterday, when I used it to make it into a boat for my little nephew to sail in his bath. As the paper got wet, I saw a queer kind of design coming out all over it. I hastily took it out of the bath and smoothed it out flat again. The water had brought out the hidden message. It was a kind of tracing, and I looked like the mouth of a harbor. Immediately after that, I read your advertisement. Tommy sprang from his chair. But this is most important. I see it all now. That tracing is probably the plan of some important harbor defenses. It had been stolen by this woman. She feared someone was on her track, and not daring to conceal it among her own belongings, she contrived this hiding place. Later, she obtained possession of the bag in which the boot was packed, only to discover that the paper had vanished. Tell me, Miss March, you have brought this paper with you? The girl shook her head. It's at the place of my business. I run a beauty parlor in Bond Street. I am really an agent for the cineraria preparations in New York. That is why I've been over there. I thought the paper might be important, so I locked it up in the safe before coming out. Ought not Scotland Yard to know about it? Yes, indeed. Then shall we go there now and get it out and take it straight to Scotland Yard? I'm very busy this afternoon, said Tommy, adopting his professional manner and consulting his watch. The Bishop of London wants me to take up a case for him, a very curious little problem concerning such investments in two curates. curates. Then in that case, said Miss March, rising, I will go alone. Tommy raised a hand in protest. As I was about to say, he said, the bishop must wait. I will leave a few words with Albert. I'm convinced, Miss March, that until the paper's been safely deposited with Scotland Yard, you're in active danger. Do you think? said the girl doubtfully. I don't think, I'm sure. Excuse me. He scribbled some words on the pad in front of him, then tore off the leaf and folded it. Taking his hat and stick, he intimated to the girl that he was ready to accompany her. In the outer office, he handed the folded paper to Albert with an air of importance. I called out on the urgent case, explained that to his lordship if he comes. Here are my notes on the case for Miss Robinson. Very good, sir, said Albert, playing up. And what about the Duchess's pearls? Tommy waved his hand irritably. That must wait also. He and Miss March hurried out. Halfway down the stairs, they encountered Tuppence coming up. Tommy passed her with a brusque, late again, Miss Robinson. I'm called out on an important case. Tuppence stood still on the stairs and stared after them. Then, with raised eyebrows, she went on up to the office. As they reached the street, a taxi came snattling up to them. Tommy, on the point of hailing it, changed his mind. Are you a good walker, Miss March? He asked seriously. Yes. Why, hadn't we better take that taxi? It'll be quicker. Perhaps you did not notice that taxi driver has just refused a fare a little lower down the street. He was waiting for us. Your enemies are on the lookout. If you feel equal to it, would be far better for us to walk to Bond Street. In the crowded city streets, they will not be able to attempt much against us. Very well, said the girl, rather doubtfully. They walked westwards. The streets, as Tommy had said, were crowded, and progress was slow. Tommy kept a sharp lookout. Occasionally, he drew the girls to one side with a quick gesture, though she herself had seen nothing suspicious. Suddenly, glancing at her, he was seized with compunction. I say, you look awfully done up. The shock of that man. Come into this place and have a good cup of strong coffee. I suppose you wouldn't hear of a nip of brandy. The girl shook her head with a faint smile. Coffee it be, then, said Tommy. I think we can safely risk its being poisoned. They lingered some time over their coffee and finally set it off at a brisker pace. We've thrown 'em off, I think, said Tommy, looking over his shoulder. Cinema, whatever that word is, Limited, was a small establishment in Bond Street with pale pink taffeta curtains and one or two jars of face cream and a cake of soap decorating the window. Ah, doggone. Okay. Cicely March entered and Tommy followed. The place inside was tiny. On the left was a glass counter with toilet preparations. Behind this counter was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and an exquisite complexion who acknowledged Cicely March's entrance with a faint inclination of the head before continuing to talk to the customer she was serving. The customer was a small, dark woman. Her back was to them, and they could not see her face. She was speaking in slow, difficult English. On the right was a sofa and a couple of chairs and some magazines on a table. Here sat two men, apparently bored husbands, waiting for their wives. Cicely March passed straight on through a door at the end, which she held ajar for Tommy to follow. As he did so, the woman customer exclaimed, "Ah, but I think that is an amico of mine," and rushed after them, inserting her foot in the door just in time to prevent it closing. At the same time, the two men rose to their feet. One followed through the door, the other advanced to the shop attendant and clapped his hand over her mouth to drown the scream rising to her lips. In the meantime, things were happening rather quickly beyond the swinging door. As Tommy passed through, a cloth was flung over his head and a sickly odor assailed his nostrils. Almost as soon, however, it was jerked off again and a woman's scream rang out. Tommy blinked a little and coughed as he took in the scene in front of him. On his right was the mysterious stranger of a few hours ago. Busily fitting handcuffs upon him was one of the bored men from the shop parlor. Just in front of him was Cicely March, wrestling vainly to free herself, whilst the woman customer from the shop held her firmly pinioned. As the latter turned her head and the veil she wore unfastened itself and fell, the well-known features of Tuppence were revealed. "Well done, Tuppence," said Tommy, moving forward. "Let me give you a hand. I shouldn't struggle if I were you, Miss March. Or do you prefer to be called Miss O'Hara?" "This is Inspector Grace, Tommy," said Tuppence. As soon as I read the note you left, I rang up Scotland Yard, and Inspector Grace and another man met me outside here." "Very glad to get hold of this gentleman," said the inspector, indicating his prisoner. "He's wanted badly, but we've never had cause to suspect this place, though it was a genuine beauty shop. You see," explained Tommy gently, your foolish questions help me a lot, Tuppence. Why should anyone want the ambassador's bag for an hour or so? What had Boots to do with it?" Boots to do with it. "Answer, the only answer, nothing, so it must be the other way about. They wanted their bag to be in the ambassador's possession for an hour or so." That was much more illuminating. Diplomatic luggage is not subjected to the indignities of a customs examination. Clearly smuggling. But smuggling of what? Nothing too bulky. At once I thought of drugs, and that picturesque comedy was enacted in my office. They'd seen the advertisement and wanted to put me off the scent, or, failing that, out of the way altogether. But I happened to notice an expression of blank dismay in the charming lady's eye when Albert did his lasso act. That didn't fit in very well with her supposed part. The stranger's attack was meant to assure my confidence in her. I played the part of the incredulous sleuth with all my might, swallowed her rather impossible story, and permitted her to lure me here, carefully leaving behind full instructions for dealing with the situation. Boy, is it long. Under various pretexts, I delayed our arrival so as to give you all plenty of time. Almost done. Cicely March was looking at him with a stony expression. "You are mad. What do you expect to find here?" Remembering that Richard saw a tin of bath salts in the bag, what do you say about beginning with the bath salts? Inspector? "A very sound idea, sir." He picked up one of the dainty pink tins and emptied it on the table. The girl laughed. "Genuine crystals, eh?" said Tommy. "Nothing more deadly than carbonate of soda." Try the safe, suggested Tuppence. There was a small wall safe in the corner. The key was in the lock. Tommy swung it open and gave a shout of satisfaction. The back of the safe opened out into a big recess in the wall, and that recess was stacked with the same elegant tins of bath salts, rows and rows of them. He took one out and prized up the lid. The top showed the same pink crystals, but underneath was a fine white powder. The inspector uttered an ejaculation. "You've got it, sir. 10 to 1. That's a tins full of pure cocaine. We knew there was a distributing area somewhere around here." Oh, it's time for Dana's making meat. That's creatively created crochet. Somewhere around here. Handy to the west end, but we haven't been able to get a clue to it. This is a fine coup of yours, sir. Rather a triumph for Blunt's brilliant detective, said Tommy to Tuppence, as they emerged into the street together. It's a great thing to be a married man. Your persistent schooling has at last taught me to recognize peroxide when I see it. Golden hair has got to be the genuine article to take me in. We now know wait a minute. We will now concoct a businesslike letter to the ambassador, informing him that the matter has been dealt with satisfactorily. Whew. And that is all of that. Chapter 8. Chapter 9, hopefully we'll get to tomorrow, is called The Affair of the Forged Notes. I hope that made sense. I tell you, I can't get past this being all the time. I'm on my iron and everything. Might be time for my B12. It's what I got in the mail today. This is such a nice bag. And it came free from Furls when you ordered 5 of their whims that they're getting rid of, that I hate they're getting rid of. But I'm stocking up. And on here, these are DKs. This is the Z-Twist. And some of it, like the Spearmint, which is a pretty lime green, and the Periwinkle. You know what Periwinkle looks like, between blue and purple. They were all out of those in DK, so I ordered those in worsted. But it says the yardage. This is a light 3, but the yardage on here says, and I'll tell y'all this on live tomorrow. Y'all get a little sneak peek. I think it says 182. I saw on here somewhere, but it's actually 196. It's right on the site, so it says it's a little less on here. Where did I see that? Where did I see that? But aren't these pretty colors? Makes you think Easter. I've already got a bunch of red and dark purple. I think I ordered more blue and the Spearmint and the Periwinkle. So I should have 2 more of these bags. This is like heavy canvas. And look, it's got a little thing that folds over and goes over this very nice button. Heavy, heavy, heavy canvas. Love it. So, I already have a bag for my 5K giveaway. But I'll save these bags for when we have another giveaway down the line. Not the little giveaways I've been doing. But anywho, my car broke down, y'all, in Michael's parking lot today. So my brother had to come pick me up. I called a guy, I thought it was my battery. I did and I didn't, because the radio came on, the light came on, and when I turned it, it did nothing. It didn't even do the little clicking like It did absolutely nothing. But all the stuff lit up. And like I say, lights came on, horn sounded, all that stuff. I'm praying it's just a fuse or something. Anyway, I waited in the car. I sat out there and crocheted. Waited on a guy to come from Kannapolis, so like 30-ish minutes. First of all, I asked in Michael's if anybody had, because I thought it was battery at first, even though all that stuff was coming on. So, but nobody had chargers or anything, so I Googled and got that guy to come out from, very nice fella, very nice. Didn't charge me anything. And he was, you know, he could charge me for gas at least, a service call, whatever. But he did not. And he had me come out there and look. You know, he put this little thing on the battery and it showed that it was registering 12.5, whatever those numbers are. But it's in the high range of where it's supposed to be. So y'all help me pray it's something inexpensive, because I was going to pay my brother back. I've been saving up $450 from the last time. I'm telling you, it's getting to be a money pit, but it's an 03. It's been great, not before it got, in the last year, I'll say. It's been, you know, something here, something there. So, I'm trying to hold out till it gets a little warmer and try to get it fixed good enough to see if I can sell it for however much and get me something. I don't want to have big fat payments, but I would like to have a decent, like a SUV or something. Talking. If y'all come over to Creatively Created Crochet, which is CCC Dana, you'll probably see me up on the panel, and I'll be trying not to talk so much so other people can talk. Love y'all. Be sweet. Don't be ugly. Bye-bye.